I don't care if it's a hot take. I thought that was a great Nintendo Direct, like 7 out of 10. We got so many really solid third-party ports. Huge announcements like Kingdom Hearts 4, Deltarune Chapter 5, Xenoblade 4, and the Ocarina of Time remake, which isn't a third party, but like, come on. Not to mention a lot of information on Rhythm Heaven Groove and the announcement of Nintendo Switch Sports Resort, which I'm super pumped for. I get some people wanted more out of Direct like this. I mean, we're a year into the Switch 2, where's 3D Mario? But I think this is, all in all, a very solid Nintendo Direct, with a lot of games coming out this year. But I do get it. With a Direct like that, and with as murky as the waters are ahead, a lot of people are scratching their heads to figure out what is the future for Nintendo. Where is the Switch 2 going? So I wanted to take today's video to not only express how much I love the Direct, but talk about what's next for Nintendo. First of all, out the gate, this year is stacked. We have Star Fox in 2 weeks. We have Rhythm Heaven next month. We have Splatoon Raiders next month. We have Switch Sports Resort in a couple months. And at the end of the year, we have the Ocarina of Time remake. Now, we don't have a date for that yet, but that's gotta be the holiday game, right? This is why I sit here and I don't understand why people keep acting like there's no games coming out for the Switch 2. Immediately, there's 5 first-party Nintendo games coming out in the second half of this year. And yeah, I get it. 2 of them are technically remakes, 1 is a sports game, and 1 is being considered a spin-off game, quote unquote. But at the end of the day, it's 5 first-party Nintendo games within the next 6 months. Not to mention, that's just covering the second half of the year. Don't forget that just this year, we already got Mario Tennis, Pokopia, and Tomodachi Life. This has been, and is going to continue to be, an amazing year for the Nintendo Switch 2. It's insane to me that people look at this lineup and say, there's no 3D Mario, so Nintendo's washed. Oh, it's just a Mario spin-off and a Pokemon spin-off and like some other random games nobody cares about, and remakes. First of all, Mario Tennis is fun. A little overpriced, very fun. Second of all, Pokopia is literally the highest rated Pokemon game of all time. I don't give a shit it's a spin-off. It's the highest rated Pokemon game of all time. And I understand that some people are upset that we're getting remakes of Star Fox 64 and Ocarina of Time again. But consider that the remakes we have of these games are only on the 3DS. They're wonderful remakes. They're how I've experienced those games for the first time. I never owned a Nintendo 64. Star Fox 3D and Ocarina of Time 3D were the ways I were introduced to those games, and I adore them, but they are still remakes for a system with a 3-inch screen. Consider how gorgeous these games will look and how well they will function now on the Switch 2. We already can see that with Star Fox. I mean, it looks beautiful from what we've seen in the demo we got, but even just that opening render of Ocarina of Time, this game is going to look beautiful and insane. I've seen some people complain about this render and this opening, and with how amazing it looks, what do you mean? What is there to complain about? Look at how good this is. I understand some people have said that it's almost too realistic and they prefer a more cartoony art style. Look, Wind Waker is not only one of my favorite Zelda games of all time, it's one of my favorite games of all time. I do like cartoony, but this is Ocarina of Time we're talking about. A game with environments like this and this that would look so wonderful in a more realistic tone, in a more realistic visual style. Not realism. We're not going for it looks real. Just a modern HD approach to environments like this. The Forest Temple in the Ocarina of Time remake might be a contender for my desktop background for the next decade, depending on how well they pull it off. Ocarina of Time as a game benefits from an art style like this. The most important thing about art styles is it servicing the game itself? Wind Waker would be, frankly, much worse of a game if it looked like this. Wind Waker is a game that benefits from its art style. Its art style serves Wind Waker. Ocarina of Time is a game and a story that is much more served by an art style like this. The story of Ocarina of Time is so grounded and mature and respectful of the player that's the main reason why it's still heralded today, and an art style like this will carry that story. So remaking not only one of the most popular Zelda games of all time, but a game that many people consider to be the greatest game of all time, not me, but I do love the game, and giving it a big, full HD reimagining on their big new console makes perfect sense, and it's a perfect way to tie us over to a newer Zelda game a few years from now. I've been saying that we're not getting a new Zelda for a while, because we just got Tears of the Kingdom near the end of the Switch's life cycle. It would not make sense to have a new Zelda this quickly, but something like this makes perfect sense, and I'm so genuinely excited for it. But look, all of that has been me defending Nintendo right now. This video is meant to be about what's next. And for those of you who I did not convince why we're in a good spot right now, let me assuage you with what I think is on the way. Because to understand the future, we needed to discuss the now. Think about all the games we've been getting for the Nintendo Switch 2 so far. Sure, there's Mario Kart, Legends CA, but a lot of the games we've been getting are less heralded franchises, the secondary or tertiary franchises of Nintendo. Look, I adore Metroid Prime. It, alongside Wind Waker, is one of my favorite games of all time, but at the end of the day, Nintendo's big three has and always will be Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon. And all the first-party Nintendo games so far for the Switch 2 have not been that. If they have been, it's like a spin-off, like Pokopia, or Hyrule Warriors, or Mario Kart World. We've been getting the secondaries, the tertiaries, games like Star Fox and Rhythm Heaven and Tomodachi Life, games that aren't as popular, but Nintendo fans love and adore and have been asking for years. Do you think that's an accident? Do you think Nintendo is releasing all of these lesser-known franchises and lesser-sold franchises this early in their new console's life for no reason? I think Nintendo is hedging its bets. Say I'm huffing copium all you want, but think about it. Nintendo knows for a fact the Switch 2 will sell well. It already has. They don't need to show the public why they should buy a Switch 2. The Switch 1 inherently shows the public why they should buy a Switch 2. They've had near a decade telling the public and showing the public why the Switch 1 is such a good console and so worth buying. All they had to do was tell people that the Switch 2 is backwards compatible and a better console, which both of those things are true. They don't need to convince people to buy the Switch 2. They needed to convince people to buy the Switch 1. Think about the Switch 1's release and how many heavy hitters came out right away. Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild on Switch 1, which was on Wii U, but you know what I mean. The Wii U was one of the biggest failures in Nintendo history. They were in dire straits. They needed to pull out every stop to convince people to buy the Nintendo Switch after how much of a flop the Wii U was. And because of that, they needed to play all their biggest cards right away for the Switch and pray it worked. And it did. But because Nintendo does not have to convince people to buy the Switch 2, they know it will sell well. They can take these first few years of hype that will boost game sales no matter what and use it to give new releases of the franchises they know fans love but don't necessarily sell as well. A rising tide raises all ships, and new games typically sell a new console, but a new console this successful sells games. I think Nintendo has been wanting to make games in these franchises for a while, but because of the fear about the Wii U and the fear about ruining the Switch's momentum, they've been holding off. And now that they have so much hype around the Switch 2, they're using that hype to boost the sales of these new releases of the lesser-known franchises, to help give new life to Tomodachi Life and Rhythm Heaven and these games that, have their fandoms and have a lot of love around them, but don't sell like Mario. And that way, the next year and the year after and moving forward, they can release the big releases to keep the hype cycle going slowly over the course of the console, giving them more time to work on it. And we're already seeing that with Pokemon. Winds and Waves comes out next year. We got ZA and we got Pokopia. We got the spin-off games out of the way. But the big new generation of Pokemon isn't coming out until next year. Something that's unheard of for Pokemon. And I wonder if part of that decision was Nintendo not pressuring the Pokemon company to get it out within a year, letting them take their time and make a bigger and better game, while they let all the other franchises who deserve new games to have their time in the sun. It's a brilliant business strategy, and one that I hope I'm right about, because not only do we finally get new entries into games like Donkey Kong, but that means your big new Zelda, your 3D Mario, they're coming soon, with more development time around the 2027-2028 year, maybe even later. We have time for those big, amazing releases, and time for the developers to make them. But even looking at just right now, we've got plenty to look forward to this year. And if I'm right, we'll have even more to look forward to in the future. But if I'm wrong, look, I'm not a soothsayer. But you have been watching RyeTwost. Of all the YouTube channels, it's the second one. Stay toasty, slices.